Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, people say that Joe Biden is like a lost and confused puppy. The man is frickin' shot. Well, there's a lot of clearly visible, very obvious evidence to suggest that. But this? Oh, like I always love to say, this really puts it into clear perspective. Holy moly. You know, when we describe people who work around Joe Biden as Biden's handlers, when we describe Joe Biden as a resident of the White House, it's not an exaggeration, it's not a joke, it's reality. We now have a video, but what's more relevant is the actual audio portion of the video, a hot mic moment where one of Joe Biden's handlers has to be so hands-on with sleepy, creepy, piss-pants Biden to the extent where he has to tell Joe to walk down the ramp and keep going until the blue line, guiding Joe Biden's every movement because Joe seemingly can't walk down a ramp and walk to a position in front of a crowd without being led step by frickin' step. I mean, this stuff is just getting wild. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, here's Joe Biden visiting a semiconductor plant in Durham, North Carolina. Just take a look at this viral clip with more than 5 million views at this point.
Okay, down here?
Yes, sir. Down the ramp. And we have people lined up on the left over here. Some union leaders and workers.
Hey, guys and ladies.
Your mark is going to be the blue one to the left.
How y'all doing?
You've got a blue mark, and that's okay.
I'll stand my blue mark, and then I'm going to say load each one of you.
Yes, sir. I'll help you get started.
Joe Biden walks out the door. There's a crowd of people lined up that he's supposed to address. He points and his first words are, "Right down here?" No, Joe, go back in the house and eat ice cream. You're there to do a public event to address the press. Obviously, you should walk down the frickin' steps and go address the damn press. Joe's handler has to tell him, walk down here, down the ramp, turn left, and then walk up to the blue line. The copium is just incredible in the comments section. Twitter clown Chris D. Jackson writes, "Clearly, none of you have ever done advanced work. Clearly, you guys don't know how advanced works for very important people. They need to be told to put one foot in front of another." Holy moly, you coping leftoids are truly unbelievable. These Blue Anon Twitter folk would justify anything if it means that they would gain politically. Your president can't walk down a ramp without being told to walk down a ramp. And again, with Joe, it's never an isolated situation. We have the infamous Biden handler notes, this famous picture which is going to go down as one of the most embarrassing moments in American history. The president, offshore wind drop-by sequence of events. You enter the Roosevelt room and say hello to participants. You take your seat. Press enters. You give brief comments. You thank participants. You ask Liz Schuler, President, AFL-CIO, a question. You thank participants and you depart. Step-by-step sequence, every single move is orchestrated. Joe Biden can't take a leak without being guided, told, or approved to take said leak. He probably has people helping him for that too. Oh, and of course, don't forget this famous moment. Bumbling Biden gets lost on way to the White House after ignoring Secret Service agent. Now, this one was truly fascinating. Joe had already been living in the White House for almost a year at that point. The White House was his house, and he didn't know how to enter his house. That's where he lives. That's where he works. Supposedly every day. Well, I mean, of course, let's add a little bit of context. He does spend most of the year on vacation in Delaware, but he's basically getting dropped off at his home, and he doesn't know how to enter his own home. He needs to be guided. He needs to be told where to go. He's an old kook. He's lost it. People who are being truly honest can see what's really going on here. For instance, here's Joe Rogan on a show the other day.
And then there's the protests in Israel. Enormous protests in Israel. Millions of people on the streets, and you're not hearing a peep about it. You know, all it is like January 6th. January 6th. Did you see what they did? January 6th. Trump is coming back, but January 6th looms large. How about the fact that the guy who's the president right now can't form a f***ing sentence? He makes up words and stumbles through things. No one says a goddamn thing about it.
He can't even speak a sentence, and nobody seems to be talking about it. It's true. It seems like the only thing that Joe Biden can form coherent sentences on are his random ramblings of his love for ice cream.
Plus Jenny's splendid ice cream. And by the way, it is splendid. You think I'm joking? If I were allowed to take you upstairs, I got a whole freezer full of Jenny's chocolate chip ice cream.
He keeps going on this ridiculous ice cream tangent during what are supposed to be serious addresses to the nation, and the rest of those public events and appearances are simply a continuation of the last 3-year-long phenomenon of Joe Biden versus the teleprompter.
Across our country have framed the flame of liberty and fanned it and started to flicker in Athens 1,000 years ago, and now it burns brightly here.
U.S. taxpayer dollars should not support companies that are willing to sell their products to abate human rights and violations, abet human rights violations. We're seeing real indications that we're turning the tide here.
A bunch of frickin' incoherent nonsense. Then, of course, when incompetent, sleepy, runny pants Joe speaks without the use of a teleprompter, again, he just defaults to the same ridiculous tactics, pandering to the crowd in front of him, this time pandering to Greeks during the Greek Independence Day reception.
They're a big part of the reason my Greek-American constituents in Delaware sometimes refer to me as the man sitting behind you, Father, who helped me my very first campaign directly behind you. Was the nickname I got early on when I won by 3,200 votes for the Senate seat when I was 29 years old, is because I started calling me Joe Bidenopoulos. Because you think I'm kidding? I'm not joking, am I? I'm not joking because of the overwhelming support from the Greek American community.
They started calling me Joe Bidenopoulos. Please, no. You know, it was one thing seeing Joe pander to the Puerto Ricans. I was basically raised by the Puerto Ricans, Joe said, even though 2 Puerto Ricans lived in his home state where he grew up. This time, though, it's a little bit more personal, because I'm Greek and I could pretty much confirm to you that no one has ever called Joe Bidenopoulos. What most Greeks probably do call Joe is the Malacca in the White House. This is the guy who's leading the free world, and boy, oh boy, is he a monumental failure. The new phenomenon that people keep referencing now is the, quote, Biden effect. Joe Biden's leading the free world, and what I mean by that is he's leading the free world into the most uncertain times in recent history. The Biden effect. South African minister says Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Argentina, Mexico, Nigeria, and others all want to join the BRICS alliance. Remember when Xi Jinping told Vladimir Putin that change is coming that hasn't happened in 100 years? It seems as though that's certainly the case, and it seems as though the catalyst for this very unfortunate change is this guy. But don't worry, folks, Joe Biden is on the case. We all know that he's highly competent on economic issues, and by highly competent, I mean he's a lying buffoon who doesn't know what the frick he's talking about. He's a lying politician snake who just keeps repeating the same damn lies.
And guess what? In the process, I'm cutting the federal budget $168 billion. You know why? Because Medicare doesn't have to pay out those exorbitant, undeserved fees. They'll pay out what it's worth.
I'm cutting the federal budget by $168 billion. No, you aren't. The budget is probably at least 50%, probably double what it was pre-pandemic times. And you're on track to increase the deficit by $17 trillion over the next 10 years. But don't worry, folks. This guy is a moron. And his most recent ridiculous talking point is one of the most frustrating I've ever heard. He keeps saying this stuff.
Before the pandemic, supply chain wasn't something most Americans thought about. When you said supply chain, you look at each other with a blank stare. Well, guess what? Everybody knows what the supply chain is because today, after delays in parts and products, folks experience, everyone knows. That's why it's so important. You have to have access to them.
This seems to be his new talking point. 2 weeks ago, he said something very similar.
But think about it. You know, I wonder how many people knew talked about, quote, the supply chain before the pandemic. Everybody knows what the supply chain is now.
Listen, Jack, before 2022, no one was ever talking about supply chains. What the hell even is a supply chain in the first place, Corn Pop? The leader of the free world, ladies and gentlemen. The leader of the most powerful economy in the world. We've been literally warning about supply chain issues since 2020, since the lockdowns began. Nobody's talking about supply chains, Jack. I've been making the connection between supply chain disruptions and the risk of inflation and even hyperinflation for over 2 years. Joe Biden is a vicious combination of dishonest, shady, just a liar, mixed with a very unfortunate case of stupid. He's just dumb. There's no other way to say it. But don't worry, folks, we're in good hands. If Joe Biden says it, like the banking crisis is over.
What do we expect coming up as it relates to this banking crisis?
Well, first of all, I think it's pretty much under control now. It remains to be seen. We're looking to see whether it needs any further legislation.
Oh, it's pretty much all under control now. He's probably the authority on the issue. Yeah, right. Give me a break. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you guys are up for it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.